Hey gorgeous, it's Ker-leen. Thank you for tuning back into my channel. Today I will be doing a ranking of all of the Arabian fragrances that are currently in my collection. Towards the end of the video, I will also be talking about the ones that I've let go and why, and sort of go over my decision-making process for decluttering. So if any of those things interest you, then please keep watching. Hey friend, welcome back to the channel. I am really excited to be hanging out with you for another one. But before we get into it, to those of you who are new here on this channel, I make videos on lifestyle, luxury, I do review videos, and I also sprinkle in a little bit of my motherhood journey and my personal life and my monthly vlogs. So if any of those things sound good to you, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button because I would love to have you here. And also be sure to turn on that notification bell so you know exactly when my videos drop. All right, let's get into it. The first portion of this video is going to be the ranking for all of my current Arabian fragrances. Coming in the last place is Lattafa's Ishq Al Shuyuk. This one has come in at the last place because it's kind of on the chopping block, and I'll talk more about that later. But this is a fragrance that I grabbed for the least because, if I'm being honest, the DNA is a little too much for me, a little bit intimidating. This is something that I don't reach for quite often. Every time I go to it and I sniff it, I just feel like it's too much. Like, it's too much for me. Although this smells amazing, I love the way this smells. I can appreciate the scent of this. It's just not something that I reach for in my everyday life, my day-to-day. When I go to reach for this, I either feel like it would be too intense or I'm just simply not in the mood for it. So yeah, what I've done with this is I have layered with this quite a lot. I've layered with fruity fragrances, with vanillas, so that I could bring out a little bit more creamy sweetness or a little bit more fruitiness, and it works beautifully as a layering fragrance for me. But that's simply not enough for me to keep this. So as I stated, this is on the chopping block, and I will definitely share a little bit more about what's on the chopping block and why, the fragrances I've given away, and my decision-making process towards the end of this video. Ishq Al Shuyuk is leather, it's musky, it's vanillic, it's animalic, and this is warm. This is a little spicy, like a warm spicy. It's a very complex, beautiful fragrance. At the top of this, you have saffron and caramel. And the caramel, now that this has been macerating for a couple of months, is a beautiful, silky, sweet, warm caramel. It has a slight metallic edge to it. Then at the mid of this, you have leather, you have suede, you have tonka bean, then you have vanilla, musk, and amber on the dry down. The most prominent note in this fragrance is that leather and that vanilla. And when you first purchase a bottle of this, that's what's going to hit you first. To me, in the beginning, this smelled like tires, like an auto repair shop, and those notes were quite intense. So this is one that has to sit, otherwise you may not be able to enjoy this. That being said, after it's macerated, it is quite a gorgeous scent. It's just not one that I've been reaching for quite often because of my lifestyle, and I can see me reaching for this less and less as we get into the springtime because I live in Florida and it's very hot here. So for that reason, this is coming in last place. This is Ishq Al Shuyuk by Lattafa. This next fragrance is a Paris corner fragrance. This is Forbidden Sugar by Amir. So this one is not on the chopping block, but this is one that is coming in next for a lot of different reasons. One of them is that I've not been reaching for this as much as I thought I would. I just have not been reaching for it as of late. I just have so many other beautiful scents, and this one is one that I think I'm going to be reaching for a lot in the summertime because it does have quite a bit of freshness. And right now I've been trying to enjoy a lot of my warmer, cozier, those really wintertime scents right now, and so this one has not been getting a lot of love from me, but I do enjoy wearing this in the evening after my showers. This is a really nice fragrance for working out because it does have this freshness to it. So this fragrance is sweet, it's powdery, it's white floral, it's slightly fresh. This has honey, it has caramel, this has a beautiful musk on the dry down. So this is just quite an interesting fragrance. The caramel and the honey accords are what drew me to this fragrance. So at the top of this fragrance, you have a beautiful fluffy marshmallow. You have the honey, you have some coconut, but this is not a coconut forward fragrance. It's not even coconut forward on first blast. The coconut, I feel like, just adds to the sweet creaminess of the opening of this. You also have a cassis at the top, which is the leaf of a berry, I believe. And so the top of this is super sweet, fresh. I think this also has bergamot at the top, so it's very fresh, fluffy, and it's honeyed. So that's what you're getting, like a fluffy, honeyed marshmallow with a blast of freshness from the bergamot, and it just opens up fluffy and fresh and sweet and juicy, and I love that. So at the mid of this, they say that there's a jasmine note in here, but I don't detect a ton of jasmine in here. Instead, I detect a very, very sweet mid. So it opens up fresh and fluffy, but then it gets even sweeter, gets syrupy. And at the mid of this, you have peach, you have pear, you have vanilla, you have caramel. And so for me, this gets super sweet and syrupy at the mid. Then the dry down is musky, powdery, it gets softer. I feel like all of those sweet notes lose their edge a little bit. They kind of soften out and you get like a powdery, musky vibe on the dry down of this fragrance. There is also this like soapiness to this fragrance, but the soapiness is... it's more like an aftershave soapiness. That's kind of like the undertone of this fragrance. That's in the background of this fragrance. It's honestly a scent profile that if I were not completely enamored with Arabian scents, I probably would never have had the chance to try something like this. But I love that you can experiment and not break the bank with these gorgeous, high quality Arabian fragrances. Like, I am completely obsessed, y'all. So anyways, this is Forbidden Sugar by Amir. This is coming in next. This will definitely be back out in the summer, I'm sure. Next, we have another Paris Corner fragrance. And if you don't know, I love Paris Corner. Like, I really enjoy their fragrances. I think they're high quality. They're all ready to go. They don't need time to macerate before you can enjoy them. And they are so, so good. This next one is one that is a complete dupe. There's maybe a slight difference between this and the original. And the fragrance I'm talking about is Kir Pistachio. I think that's how you pronounce it. For those of you who know how to pronounce these fragrances, please leave the phonetic pronunciation in the comments for me, because I definitely always want to honor the culture, honor the pronunciation, and just say it the way it's supposed to be said. So I think this is pronounced Kir Pistachio. And this is a dupe for Kayali's Yum Pistachio Gelato. And y'all, this is very, very close. So when I first spray this, it's fresh, it's sweet, and I get a lot of pistachio. And that's one of the key differences I feel like for me between this one and the original. I feel like this one is just a beautiful, more natural pistachio. There's something about the original that was giving me like this metallic vibe. Every time I touched my skin, it turned metallic. And that's why I didn't end up gravitating towards the original. But this one does not have that metallic vibe. I'm not sure what note or what notes caused that on my skin, but this one is not like that whatsoever. Instead, this opens up sweet, fresh, and you get a beautiful, more natural pistachio. Yes, there are florals at the mid of this fragrance, but to my nose, I don't quite detect them. I know that there is a muguet note in here, and that note I believe is lily of the valley. So for me, that's how the florals come across. They come across as very wet and dewy, very crisp, very fresh. But then there are also fruits at the mid. There's peach, there's pear, there's raspberry, and I just feel like they add to the sweetness more than anything. It's really hard to detect one fruit over the other. And then it gets even sweeter and even creamier with all of those delicious base notes. You have marshmallow at the base of this. There is whipped cream, there's cotton candy. Oh, it's just so sweet and delectable. It has this candy-like facet, but not like a hard juicy candy, more like a hard powdery candy. You definitely get those fluffy marshmallow and cotton candy vibes in here, but then I love that there's a creaminess in here. However, even with all of those sweet, creamy notes, those fruity notes, this never gets overly sweet. This is not a tooth-achingly sweet fragrance. This is just the right amount of sweetness. I think the main difference for me between this and the original is this one pays a little bit more homage to the pistachio note that I feel like the original intends to do. This one gets the pistachio right. It's like a fresh, bright, fluffy, sweet, creamy pistachio fragrance that is perfect for warmer weather this coming spring and summer. So for that reason, this is next. This next fragrance is Al Rahab's French Coffee. This is one of those hidden gems that if you love a good coffee note in your fragrance, you love a fresh, realistic coffee note, you love your sweet, creamy, slightly lactonic fragrances, then you definitely want to get this one in your collection. This one is beautiful, y'all. This one is creamy, it's caramel, it's lactonic, it's coffee, really fresh coffee, and it's gorgeous. It's like the most realistic coffee fragrance that I own currently. So French Coffee has notes of coffee, caramel, milk, vanilla, cacao, sugar, cinnamon. Ugh, the notes in here are gorgeous. And for me, the way that this wears is it opens up with a blast of really fresh, realistic coffee, as if you were smelling fresh coffee beans. That's how this opens up. It opens up very bold, very robust, very strong. The strength of the coffee, the integrity of that fresh coffee bean is there when you first spray this. Then it starts getting sweet, it starts getting creamy, almost like there's this milk or creamer that has been added to the coffee and is being incorporated into that cup of coffee. So it's getting creamy, lactonic, it's getting sweet and sugary. On the dry down of this, you get like this beautiful latte. It's like a caramel latte. Those are the vibes that you get on the dry down of French Coffee. Now it also has this essence of like a sweetener, and some of you are detecting that as like a coconut, but to my nose it smells like a sugar alternative, an artificial sweetener. It smells like a stevia or something like that. There's this after smell that puts me in the mind of the aftertaste I get when I have a sugar alternative like stevia. And I know for some of you, you were picking up like a coconut note. So that is kind of in the background of this as well. But yes, this is gorgeous. I love this fragrance. It smells so much more expensive than it actually is. And so if you enjoy coffee fragrances, if you enjoy a coffee forward fragrance, a very prominent coffee note in your fragrance, I think you will like this one. So yeah, check this out. This is Al Rahab's French Coffee, and it's next on this list. Coming in next, I think number 5 on the list is Lattafa's Bade Al Oud Sublime. Bade Al Oud Sublime is one of my favorite Arabian finds as of yet. It's so good. And again, this is one that I cannot wait to relish in and truly enjoy this coming summer. It's going to be clutch this summer because it's one that I can spray with abandon and not worry about the price tag, but it performs like a very high quality, fresh, fruity, floral fragrance. This is so good. This is supposed to be a dupe for Kayali's Eat and Juicy Apple, but in my opinion, I feel like this is a more refined, a more elegant, and a more grown-up version of that fragrance. So while it has very similar notes, this one is a little bit more floral forward and a little bit more elevated. I also feel like the moss at the base of this makes this a little bit more refined. And that's why to me, to my nose, it smells like an expensive, fruity, floral, fresh fragrance. I feel like with Eat and Juicy Apple, you pick up on the fruits first. It's more fruit forward. Although there is that rose note in the opening for both fragrances, I think, I feel like the rose note is more prominent in the opening of this one. So you get the apple, you get the lychee, you get the rose, but the rose is more forward. But this is very like sweet, juicy, slightly tart in the opening. And it's just so refreshing, so mouth-watering, so juicy. It's as if you took a drink of this fresh, juicy, slightly tart cocktail in the dead of summer. Like that's what you get when you first spray this. It's not a gourmand, but it's very yummy. It's very mouth-watering. At the mid of this, you get plum and jasmine. I don't detect the jasmine. There's not a ton of jasmine in here. On the dry down, there is patchouli in here. There's moss and there's vanilla. But to my nose, I barely detect it, honestly. I feel like it might just be there to add strength to this fragrance, to increase its longevity. But really what I get is that beautiful moss. The moss in here, I feel like supports the other notes because moss is green, but it tends to come across like a wet green note. And in here, because the other ingredients are very fresh, wet, mouth-watering, I feel like the moss supports the other notes perfectly. And then it gets vanillic on the dry down. Not a ton of vanilla, but it just adds to the sweetness of it, and it gets slightly, ever so slightly creamy on the dry down. So I love this. I think it performs really nicely. And that's why I feel like this one is the older sister of Eat and Juicy Apple, who knows a little bit more about life, is a little bit more refined, but obviously is from the same family as Eat and Juicy Apple. Coming in next is Swiss Arabian's Shagaf Oud Tonka. So this fragrance is high on the list, and I've talked about this fragrance in a couple of different videos, so I will link those videos here so you can hear my full experience and thoughts on this fragrance. But y'all, this is quite honestly, in my opinion, a very masterfully done fragrance. It smells so expensive and it is so affordable. And that's what blows my mind, how affordable this gorgeous fragrance is. This opens up with like a sugary, sweet almond note that has a little bit of a cherry nuance. When I first purchased this and sprayed it out, I mainly got like a sugared almond. Now that this is macerated for a little bit, maybe close to a few weeks now, this gives off a little bit of a cherry nuance. So I love that facet of this fragrance. So you get that sugared almond with a cherry nuance, and then there is a cinnamon note in here. It kind of brings balance to this fragrance. It sort of balances out all the other notes. And it's not a note that you're going to pick up on very strongly. It's more in the background, and I really love the way they do it in here. There is supposed to be a white floral note in here, a rose note, but I don't pick up a ton of florals in here. Instead, this gets creamy, it gets vanillic. I get that tonka on the dry down. You get a heavy dose of tonka in this fragrance almost right away, but it dries down to a sweet, creamy, very smooth tonka. And there is a little bit of a woody undertone in this fragrance as well. The thing that's the most intriguing about this fragrance is somehow this is creamy, almondy, has a very healthy and heavy dose of tonka, slightly sweet, and somehow also very fresh and bright. So I love the way that they have done all of those notes in this fragrance. It smells expensive and it is so good. I've never smelled the fragrance this is supposed to be duping, which is BDK's Velvet Tonka. I've never smelled it, but if it smells anything like this, wow. Wow is all I'm going to say. This is so good. So for those of you who have been watching me for a little bit here and have witnessed my deep dive into the world of Arabian fragrances, when I show you this next one, I think you're going to be able to guess what my #1 fragrance is. So I'm kind of giving it away here, but #2 on my list is Lattafa's Khamra Khawa. So I'm sure you're going to guess what my #1 is, right? If you can guess it, at this point in the video, leave me a comment down below. So this is #2 because this is a fragrance I would pay top dollar for. That's how much of a high quality fragrance I perceive this one to be. This is amazing. I love everything about this fragrance. It's perfectly executed from the packaging down to the actual juice. It is just pure quality. pure quality. I'm not going to go into the notes very heavily because I have a dedicated review on this fragrance. And if you have not watched it, I would encourage you to go watch it. This is so good, y'all. Only thing that saddens me is that we are now leaving the seasons where I will be able to truly appreciate this. I purchased this in the fall, and so I enjoyed it thoroughly in the fall. Then we entered winter, and now we're approaching the end of winter, and I'm not going to be able to enjoy this as much as I would like anymore. This has a beautiful Arabian coffee note that is so subtle. It's so subtly done, and I think that's what takes this one over the edge. This is also one of those fragrances that's not overly sweet. So just like Tonka, Kir Pistachio, this is another one that's not overly sweet. The sweetness is not overdone here. It has more edible smelling notes than not. So for that reason, I think this is a true gourmand. And oh, this is so good, y'all. This is warm, spicy, it's sweet, it's vanillic. There's a subtle coffee note in here. This has a beautiful cinnamon. It's like a warm, spicy, cozy, sweet scent, and it is so, so good. Although they've put coffee in the name, I feel like it's not a very coffee forward fragrance. The coffee is a nuance, it's a vibe, it's a foundational note, and I feel like that's what makes this so unique. This is also very sweet and slightly creamy to my nose. And when I first spray this, I get that cardamom. It has a very pronounced cardamom note. So it does come across as very aromatic on the opening. You also get that cinnamon as well. The cinnamon just adds a very subtle spice to the opening. There's also ginger in the opening of this too. So it's a warm, spicy, aromatic opening. And then you get into that sticky sweetness, that slight creaminess, because this has praline and candied fruits at the mid. Then this gets resinous and ambery. You have tonka bean, you have benzoin, you have vanilla. At the base of this, there's that gorgeous coffee note. And so this is a beautifully done fragrance. It smells very refined, very expensive. This smells like a fragrance from a very high quality niche house. So I love this. If you don't have any of the khamras, get this one first. If you do have the original, I say this is worth a try as well, because this one is very elevated and does have the addition of the coffee note. And from what I'm hearing, I feel like this one might be less sweet than the original. So if the original is a little too sweet for you, try this one. I think you will enjoy it. This is so good. Okay, friend, drum roll, please. Coming in at number 1 is Afnan Edict Amber Time. Hey! I'm sure if you've watched me for a little bit now, you know how much I love this fragrance. It is so good. It is coming in at number 1 because it checks off so many different boxes for me. So the first, of course, is the fragrance itself. It is a very, very expensive smelling fragrance. So expensive smelling and so good. Second is the longevity. This lasts all day. It lasts all day. It's eternal on the clothes, lasts all day on the skin. It projects beautifully. When I spray this on, people smell me walking past more than an arm's length away. And I love that for me. Thirdly, the packaging is gorgeous. I would say it's the most extravagantly packaged fragrance of all of my Arabian scents so far. It came so beautifully packaged, and the bottle itself is absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I will put the videos where I talked about this fragrance up top for you so you can go and check out all of my thoughts on this fragrance. Every time I put my nose on this fragrance, I am blown away all over again. This fragrance reminds me of Baccarat Rouge. This is like Baccarat Rouge vibes. So the essence of Baccarat Rouge, the class, that's what I get in here. Except if you love your gourmand fragrances, if you love your really sweet fragrances, you're going to appreciate this because this is like a sweet and creamy and slightly nutty version of Baccarat Rouge 540. This has cinnamon, amber, and tonka at the opening. Okay, at the opening of this. So it's sweet, creamy, and ambery right away. Then you start picking up on the saffron. This also has a jasmine at the mid, and then it has a vanilla. So you get saffron, jasmine, and vanilla all at the mid of this fragrance. Then at the base, you get that ambergris note, you get sandalwood, and you get a crisp cedar. So it's creamy, it's woody. The ambergris gives it a little bit of a musky vibe. This is so good, y'all. So I love that you get the sweet, the ambery, the creamy, and the vanillic notes at the opening and at the mid of this fragrance. Aside from all the sweet, creamy goodness of this fragrance, the standout note for me in here is the saffron. The saffron is done very similar to Baccarat Rouge 540, and I think that's why you get those vibes. There's also a cedar in here and ambergris, and I think those notes are very similar to the notes in Baccarat Rouge 540. It's amber time for me. It's amber time for me. And while the price on this continues to fluctuate, I think I purchased this for $46. Y'all, you cannot beat that. This smells like a $300 fragrance. So for me to have paid under $50 for this is mind-blowing to me. Mind-blowing. So for that reason, Afnan Edict's Amber Time is #1 out of all of my Arabian fragrances. This is so good. And y'all, I keep forgetting how many fragrances I truly have now. And I totally forgot about these two because they're queued for another video. So these are another 2 fragrances that I have in my collection of Arabian scents. But Rifakat, this one on the right-hand side with the black cap, is a phenomenal fragrance. It's supposed to be a dupe of Baby Cat by YSL. It's a phenomenal fragrance. This belongs at the top of my list, y'all. And then I'd put December Vanilla kind of in the mid, maybe number 6 or 7 would be December Vanilla spot. But Rifakat would be like number 2 or 3, honestly. So really quickly, I was about to wrap this video up and I realized I forgot to share my declutters for my Arabian fragrances and sort of my thought process. So far I have decluttered Razazi's Ebhar, and I have also decluttered Amber Grand by Paris Corner. On the chopping block is Lattafa's Ishq Al Shuyuk. And for Razazi's Ebhar, the reason why I ended up decluttering that one is because it just didn't move me in one way or another. It's a very beautiful fragrance. The packaging was just gorgeous. I love the bottle on that one, but it just wasn't something I was reaching for. It didn't excite me. It wasn't something that I felt super joyful about when I picked up the bottle. It was just nice. It was just nice. And I have a lot of other fragrances with similar notes. It was like a vanillic, ambery, warm type of scent. And I have so many other much more interesting sweet vanillic, warm ambery scents. So that one I ended up selling because it just was not moving me. And that's usually one of the key indicators for me that I need to declutter a fragrance. If I'm not reaching for it, if it's not getting a lot of use from me, if I'm not excited about it, that means that I may need to put it on the chopping block. And as I've been trying to keep my fragrance collection very, very small, that happens quite often. So whenever I notice that it's been like a month, 2 months, and I haven't been reaching for a fragrance, I will pull it out and consider whether I want to keep it or not. Now, the next one that I got rid of was Amber Grand, and that is simply because I love the fragrance. I loved it so much that I purchased the original. I purchased Grand Soir, and I've been thoroughly enjoying Grand Soir. Amber Grand had performance issues, and that's another reason why I might declutter something, is if it has performance issues. So Amber Grand, I had to top up a ridiculous amount. Every couple of hours I felt like I needed to top up, and while I'm not a huge stickler for performance as far as longevity, I don't mind topping up my fragrances, that was just a little too much for me. I wanted a little bit more performance from it, and I loved the DNA so much that I ended up getting the original, and so I decluttered the dupe. The next one that is on the chopping block is Ishq Al Shuyuk, and again, this is a fragrance that I'm not reaching for. I'm just not reaching for it as much as I would like. And I think I've had it for a few months now, and I think it's time to let it go. So if you're interested in purchasing Ishq Al Shuyuk from me, it will be on my Mercari, and I'll put the link in the description box for you all. I will definitely be back with a full-length decluttering video talking through a little bit more of my decision-making process, so stay tuned for that. All right, friend, thank you so much for being here. If you're still here and you found this video enjoyable or helpful, don't forget to give it a like on your way out because that really helps my channel grow. Also, if any of these fragrances are in your collection, let me know which ones. And if you please, drop your top 5 Arabian fragrances in the comments as well. I'm curious to know what you all are loving and also to learn about some new fragrances from you. You all have made some amazing recommendations, and I thank you for all of the recommendations because your girl has another haul coming for you. So definitely stay tuned and drop down what your top 5 Arabian scents are at the moment. Before you click off of the video today, I wanted to share something with you that has been deposited in my spirit. If you notice you have a pull or a burden towards doing a certain thing, if you're noticing a deficiency, a lack, a gap, and it feels like an eyesore to you, it's something that you can't get away from, chances are that that is something that you are called to do. That is an area that you're being called towards. And if not you, then who? Who? A lot of times our purpose is wrapped up in our inclinations. Think about the ways in which you're wired. When you look at the world around you, what are the things that bother you? When you think about your talents, your gifts, your inclinations, the way that you're wired, what are some of the things that you enjoy doing that bring you the most fulfillment? A lot of times our purpose is wrapped up in all of those things. It's definitely something I've been thinking about lately, and I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you in the next one very soon. Bye.